It has been a wild 48 hours. Russia flew drones into Poland, Israel airstriked Qatar, Charlie Kirk got assassinated, the French government collapsed, again, and TikTok and Discord overthrew the government of Nepal. There's a lot to talk about, but I want to cover Nepal. In the background of this video, I'm going to show footage of some of the protests. I've tried not to include anything with violence between people, and I'll tell you where it's sourced later in the video. Social media revolutions aren't anything new. A lot of people say that the spread of Facebook and social media in the Middle East caused the Arab Spring, or made it much bigger. Facebook is still playing a huge role in Asia's politics, and there's even allegations that it contributed to a genocide in Myanmar. There is a difference between Facebook and Discord though. For one, the memes on Discord are much better. Two, Discord is purpose-built to organize large groups of people, generate consensus, silence dissent, and also operate quite privately. There is some comedy in the idea that if they continue to leverage the platform and they don't all get banned, then this may be one of the best organized revolutions. That's just my thoughts on the headline though. What actually happened? According to this YouTube short, because that's the media landscape and why not, then it started with TikTok videos criticizing the Nepo babies ruling Nepal and the government's corruption while the common people struggled. It's a tale as old as time. If the French government hadn't collapsed this week, they probably could have given them some advice. Don't tell them to eat cake. I did that when I was younger and it was a bad idea. But why? They are poor. It would taste terrible. The criticism on TikTok led to a social media ban which only inflamed the situation. According to ABC Australia, the ban included the following platforms. Notably, TikTok and Discord were not banned, and that does make me wonder if the role of the TikTok videos is slightly overblown. Human Rights Watch has also said this is nothing new. The authorities have tried to create legislation like this in the past and silence speech, as well as prosecute and arrest journalists for making allegations about a political family's business dealings. Regardless, 12,000 people or more went out to protest the ban, and 21 of them lost their lives. A further 1,300 people were injured as the police tried to control the crowds, and 12,500 prisoners escaped across the country. I'm going to read Human Rights Watch's description of this because it paints quite a picture. A credible security source said that there were orders from above to respond aggressively to the protests, though Human Rights Watch could not corroborate this. In Kathmandu, police used tear gas, water cannons, and live ammunition against crowds, largely consisting of young people and children. Police also opened fire in Ithari in southeast Nepal, where 2 people were reported killed, and in other cities. They also used tear gas at Civil Hospital in Kathmandu, where some of the injured were taken. If that is true, the next part makes a lot more sense. When some of the protesters reached the Congress, they set it on fire. This is very symbolic, and I imagine it's one of the reasons this has caught people's attention more than some of the other large protests in the rest of the world. There are a few other things which might have caught people's attention, though. The protesters started looting mansions, kidnapping and humiliating politicians, and burning down buildings. I didn't know about most of that, though, because I only saw the headline that said that Discord had toppled a government and that they were electing their leaders over Discord polls. So I tried to join the Discord where this vote was happening, in part to see if it was real, but mainly to witness history and report on it. There are 2 links floating about. This is the link I followed, and it appears to be the real server, even though it has way fewer members than was reported by India Today, and the name is slightly different. If you go to the server called Youth Against Corruption, which is what India Today calls it, then that has almost no members and lots of Indian flags. I would discourage joining either though, because they are probably being heavily watched right now. The most surprising thing about this server is the polls channel. India Today reported that they were electing the leaders of the movement, and therefore the government, via Discord polls which anyone could vote in, and in the screenshot they only had like 4,000 votes. I assumed that this was a screenshot of the first 5 minutes, but it's not. Most of these polls had a total of 8,000 votes or less. There is one poll with 14,000 votes, which is still ridiculously low. If this is real, then it's insane. If it's clickbait, which it could be after looking at the numbers, then there's a huge amount of misinformation spreading at the moment about its legitimacy. Oh, and I need to make a disclaimer. I'm not posting on the server, and I'm not participating in any of the polls. The polls already ended the day before I joined, so I couldn't vote even if I wanted to, which I don't. Both because this is a revolution and I don't want to get in trouble, and also because only the people of Nepal should be voting. Unfortunately, this is the least secure way they could have organized the vote, and it would have absolutely been rigged. It would literally have been more secure if they just gathered everyone together and asked them to cheer on who they supported. Now, there's still a chance the server is fake, but I'm going to assume it's real and tell you about some other stuff I saw there. A lot of the recent announcements have been about this guy called Sudan Garang, who appears to be a leader or chief representative of the Gen Z protesters, at least according to this server.
You may not like him, Minister, but you can't deny Dumbledore's got style.
He went to meet with the president of Nepal and called for the dissolution of parliament. Initially, they refused to meet with him, and he refused to talk to anyone except the president, and his team of other Gen Z protesters had to be present as well. I assume this is to prevent the president from bribing or threatening one of them, which, if the president is corrupt, he would definitely do, and even if he wasn't corrupt, he would probably do it anyway. If you were in his shoes and your parliament got burned down and your ministers dragged through the street, you might too. It seems some of the protesters didn't trust Sudan Garang, though, which is probably genuine. This is a big movement, and the protesters need to know they can trust him. This prompted the server to share a copy of his citizenship, though I don't know how much that would really do. Anyway, the president still refused to meet with him, so he staged a sit-in with his team. Eventually, the president dissolved parliament and appointed the former Chief Justice, Sushila Karki, as the interim prime minister. She's in her 70s and supposedly a sort of compromise candidate, but she's strongly anti-corruption. This would make her the first female Chief Justice and the first female Prime Minister of Nepal, which is somewhat interesting. A lot of big newspapers like to emphasize people's innate characteristics, even when that's not relevant. I would imagine that in a revolution primarily driven by economics, the gender is not the deciding factor in her appointment. It would be her track record. Now, after reading the announcements, I had a look through the protest log channel, which contains all these videos of the protest. It is mostly burning and breaking shit, or playing dress up and sharing memes. That channel is the source of the videos of the protest I've shown so far. The amount of arson is unbelievable. There is definitely violence on both sides too. There is a video of what I believe are protesters beating an unconscious man in a blue shirt with pieces of wood until he and the wood are bloody. There are other, more well-known videos of a politician being chased down the street, karate kicked into a wall, stripped down to his underwear, and marched into a river. A lot of the protesters are armed too. Most of them are just waving guns around, but some of them are shooting them into the air or into burning buildings. Credit to some of the protesters, though, for stepping in and trying to take the guns away from the bad actors, even as they're firing them. And, well, that's incredibly brave. This is, unfortunately, not all peace and love. This is revolution. It's real and it's visceral. And I saw some of the protesters claiming that the violence is being perpetrated by older people, and therefore it's not part of the Gen Z revolution, or that Maoists and other actors are using the movement for their own ends. That might be accurate, or it might not be. Unfortunately, a decentralized movement like this makes you almost indistinguishable to the government. They don't care if you're a Maoist, Gen X, a millennial, Gen Zer, or a straw hat pirate, which I saw a few of. They just know that you're all revolutionaries. The distinction only matters if you win, which you might, in which case, which faction will prevail. Historically, the violent minority often has. The sooner things are centralized, the better if you want to stop them. In the words of your Discord mods, which is a weird thing to say, stop burning shit and put out the fires. Anyway, that's what's been going on with the protesters. Let's have a look at the government. Well, they've called in the military, which supposedly has a good reputation with the people, according to the AP. As my fellow Gen Zers will say, press X to doubt. If the military is deployed to stop the protests, I'm guessing their popularity is about to experience sudden and unpredictable change. They're also supposedly having a hard time determining who the leaders of the protest are. Because it's being coordinated on social media, then the leaders are somewhat anonymous, and even if one of them goes down, a few others will spring up. I've heard that live maps and recipes for Molotov cocktails were being shared as well, but I haven't seen any of that, so I assume it's being done via direct messages. I did a search for maps in the announcement channel of the Discord, and all I got was this. It's a call for people to help stop a fire. Above that is half a dozen or more announcements telling people not to set government buildings on fire. In one sense, it's kinda funny. We are trying to run a revolution. Could you stop setting things on fire for 5 minutes? No. In another sense, it's quite serious. Burning down Congress is symbolic. Burning down the city is a lunacy. They could very easily lose the support of the people if they don't manage the violence, which is going to be extremely difficult because it's so decentralized. There's also another weird dimension to this. Apparently, Nepal is currently the largest contributor of UN peacekeeping troops. This is not particularly unusual. Lots of small countries make big contributions to the UN to improve their international reputation, amongst other things. If the military gets involved in this internal conflict, though, and there's serious abuses or allegations, then it's possible the UN will refuse to allow their troops to continue being peacekeepers, or they'll have to withdraw those troops themselves to deal with problems on the home front. And after they're gone, there's no guarantee they'd be easily replaced by another state, so this revolution could ripple out and make a lot of other conflicts much worse. I've seen a few videos of people surrounding and climbing on top of tanks, including with children. And that is quite wild because it means that the military doesn't have the will to suppress the protest, which might explain why the president has capitulated and dissolved parliament. And I think one military chief was calling for dialogue between the sides. I just don't know though, I haven't seen enough about the military. The last clip I saw was them peacefully retrieving a politician that had been kidnapped by a crowd. Hopefully they can mediate. So yeah, this is what I've learned so far. If I got anything wrong or you know more about it, then let me know and I'll make a follow-up video or put the new information in the description. It is absolutely fascinating how Generation Z and social media platforms like Discord, Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube are changing society. They're having the impact that people thought millennials would have, for better and worse. I hope that things improve for the people of Nepal and the crisis is resolved peacefully. Now to leave this Discord before everyone gets banned. I'm not certain, but revolution is probably against terms of service.